So normally when I'm writing, when I'm thinking up new ideas, the first thing that comes to me is usually an image of the main character doing something. So in the case of Carrie, she was drinking a cup of tea, staring out of a window at this vast snowy mountain range. And I got that image whilst I was in Colorado. I was on a writing retreat, and it was, so this was before I wrote One Christmas Morning, but I didn't know what to do with that image and that thought. But I really wanted to write something that was set in like snowy mountains, because there was just something about those mountains in Colorado and how like stark and quiet and watchful they were. And there was just this like quiet, wild beauty about them that I wanted to capture in a novel. So I kept that image with me. And at first, like I really thought that Carrie, in her story, was building a tiny house. So I researched tiny houses and how to build them, and I thought, no, there's a lot that goes into building a tiny house, and I'm not sure that I would do that justice. But we have been renovating our house, and we've renovated a property before that, so we do have like a fairly good grasp of renovations and what goes into sorting out a house or a property. So the idea of Carrie returning to her hometown, having to renovate a cottage, kind of made sense with a general plot of her plot line for the story. But I also wanted to create a place that had all sorts of women's voices and stories, and how they go back generations, and how like if we don't write them down, they're lost. And so the kind of the tapestry of the book really grew quite organically and in quite a strange way as I peeled back the layers of the three main characters and the stories that they wanted to tell and how they were woven together. So we've got Carrie, obviously Carrie Morgan, who returns after wandering around Europe for 10 years and painting. We have got Cora Morgan, a very feisty 80-year-old woman who is the current owner of the Morgan Compendium, the collected stories of the women of Woodsmoke. And she, I think I can say, hand on heart, she is my favourite character I've ever written so far. She is a very complex, interesting character. She believes very strongly in the magic of Woodsmoke. She believes very strongly in safeguarding the women of Woodsmoke and the town. She cares very much for that. But she also has very fixed ideas about things, and she's quite unwavering. And she's also just hilarious with the way that she speaks to her husband Howard, and she thinks about people. And she was just such a fun character to write. So I really enjoyed writing her and introducing her to the reader. And there's also Jess. So Jess is Carrie's ex-best friend, and she lives in Woodsmoke. She's bringing up her daughter Elodie, and she really is trying to juggle motherhood and her job and homemaking and who she is as a person. She loves reading, she loves slipping into a book and just having some moments to herself, but obviously there are lots of pulls on her time, and that can be quite jarring for her. She wants this like perfect family life, but she also feels like she's losing herself. And so when Carrie returns, it brings up all these feelings from 10 years before that she hasn't thought about for a long time. And so for her, that's a real journey of rediscovering herself and acceptance, and kind of rekindling that relationship with someone who was very important to her 10 years before. I really feel like Woodsmoke has such a personality. So Woodsmoke is it's inspired by the town that I grew up in the way that it's set out, but it's this it's town that's centered around a market square with veins of streets that run off it, almost like a beating heart. And surrounding it are these mountains, these looming mountains. So it's in the shadow of them. So they have this real presence over the town. And it really affects how the people kind of live, how they interact, the gossipy, closed nature of the town, because they're kind of closed in. So it really informs how the people live their lives and how they think about things. And the mountains themselves, this ever-present, watchful, looming landscape, they there are all these stories about them that are recorded in the Morgan compendium, warnings about not straying from the path, not listening if you hear like a noise, not following it, because there are stories of women going missing, of men going missing, and just things that can't be explained with science, but can be explained just through talking around a fire or just by recording it in the book, and everybody accepts that that's how it is. So hopefully I've like captured that kind of feeling of like a small town in a very enclosed setting, and I really do feel like Woodsmoke is a character in and of itself, because it's grown in an almost organic way, with its relationship with the mountain. The Morgan Compendium is a collection of stories and warnings and spells and recipes that's been gathered up by the Morgan women over generations. And the Morgan women have always lived in the town of Woodsmoke. So there are all of these things that are recorded in this book, that informs the book, The Woodsmoke Women's Book of Spells. And it's passed down from grandmother to granddaughter through the generations, and the latest kind of owner of the book is meant to be able to help other Woodsmoke women with issues that they're having. Maybe someone's gone missing, or they're hearing strange noises, and so they go to the Mormon women for help. And then their story is recorded in the book as well. So it's almost like an alternative history. I've got it in my head, and I know how far back it goes to the mid 1800s. And I wrote out some of those stories and recipes and things like that in this Word document, just so that I had them for reference, because they, like sections of them appear as epigraphs throughout the book itself. So I did have to have a good think and make sure I matched up the dates correctly for the women that had it. So like Clemence Morgan had it, I believe, in 1871. And then there's Sybil, I believe she had it as well. And then Tabitha, who is Cora and Ivy's grandmother, sorry. So I had to like match up, the kind of timeline, and because it missed a generation each time, it missed the mother, I had to make sure that I was spacing it out far enough so that it was like a believable length of time. I really enjoyed this because I wrote the magic that surrounds Woodsmoke in the way that I believe it could exist in our world. The things that we can't explain, about the wild places of our world, the feeling that we get when we're in a woods or somewhere completely deserted, that feeling of being watched, or that feeling that there is something other if you just turn around and look out of the corner of your eye. Very often when I'm going for walks in the winter on Scilly, across the cliffs, or through the little nature trails, especially when it's foggy and I'm completely alone, you just feel like there could be something else out there that isn't explained by science, and I wanted to capture that feeling in this book. So it's speculative in nature, but it's a very light touch, because I want the reader to be able to put their own thoughts and feelings into what the magic could be as they're reading it. Well, I suppose if you're not going to have a really rule-based magic system with specific set rules, I would say the way that the magic came through in this book was in edits. Just rewrite and rewrite and rewrite until you've got it clear in your own head how characters could interact with it, and how it works, and whether there are rules or whether it is chaos. It could be chaos, that's fine, as long as you know that as the writer. But I would just start off by, and this is just general advice to all writers, write what you love and write what excites you and interests you, because you've got to sustain that interest throughout an entire first draft. And once you've got that first draft, you know, that's a massive hurdle to have crossed, and then you've got something to work with, because you can't work on a blank page. That's my general advice. And then, you know, more specific advice for magic systems is they could just evolve over time, or you could have set rules before you start. There's no right or wrong way. You can do it however feels more comfortable and natural to you.